Our next speaker is Filippo Genovesi, who will speak to us about the European Charcot-Marie-Tooth Federation. It is a non-profit organization created to unite all the CMT advocacy groups across Europe to help raise awareness and promote better care for people with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, fund research, and encourage the formation of new organizations in countries where there is not an advocacy group yet. Filippo is the vice president of the ECMTF and board member of the ACMT Rete, an Italian PAG of CMT patients and a founder member of the federation. He has a scientific background. Filippo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexandru, and thank you, everyone. I apologize in advance for coughing and sneezing because I was tested positive for COVID yesterday, so sorry. I'll share my screen and my presentation and talk to you about recent research highlights and clinical trials about CMT and Charcot-Marie-Tooth. First of all, a few words about the federation. We actually have 11 full members coming from 9 countries all over Europe. Furthermore, we have some associate members ranging from China to Israel. So we are really growing and including many more countries into our federation. We are committed on different fields, to name 2. I would say raising awareness is one of our missions. We have been organizing for 5 years awareness campaigns during October, going all over Europe with very nice visuals and communication strategies. Furthermore, one of our tasks is to making stakeholders talk to one another. What I mean is that patient organizations, pharma company, clinicians, and researchers usually don't speak to each other. So the idea is to organize a congress next year. It will be held in Paris from 9 to 10 June to make them talk to each other. There will be a dedicated workshop, and we will face different aspects of research on CMT and try to, as I say, to make those people talk to one another. It's paramount importance. So to sum up, the main symptoms of Charcot-Marie-Tooth, it's the most common inherited neuropathy. You might have heard of it. So basically, our peripheral nerves suffer. They do not conduct the nervous signal very well. So there are many different symptoms which are related to this topic. What really struck my imagination thinking about CMT is the heterogeneity. I mean, there are different phenotypes ranging from people who have very mild symptom or late onset to people bound on a wheelchair, even within the same form. And talking about genetics, the heterogeneity is even more stronger in the sense that there are so far more than 100 genes which are associated to some form of CMT. The inheritance pattern is very different, ranging from autosomal dominant to mitochondrial DNA forms. And luckily, thanks to progress in genetic diagnosis, many more genes per year are discovered thanks to whole exome sequencing and other techniques. So we are getting more and more into and more chances to diagnose CMT. You might have seen this slide already, as the patient journey to the diagnosis is not as straightforward as we would like it to be. So from first symptom to the diagnosis, it's a real nightmare. It takes basically around 10 years to get a proper diagnosis for a CMT patient, but there are still some forms which are not genetically characterized yet, so there's a lot to do. To sum up, which are the main hurdles of CMT, of course, being understood, because if we don't get a diagnosis, people around us don't understand what's going on. They think we are absent-minded and leave things drop on the floor or something like that. As I said, getting a diagnosis or treatment is even harder because doctors usually don't know the disease, or it's quite hard to find a professional which is well trained to take care of CMT patients. And last but not least, we should provide information about some tools, for instance, in this visual ankle foot orthosis, which could help a patient to live better. Thankfully, sorry, there are many clinical trials which are ongoing or will soon start. To sum up what a clinical trial is, starting from the discovery or preclinical stages, we have generally 3 phases. First phase is about safety of the drug, and while phase 2 and phase 3 are about the efficacy of the drug. I want to stress about the success rate, which is generally quite low. As you can see from this funnel, starting from many candidates, around 10,000 candidates, just one gets to the approval and to the market. So it's not a straightforward process. And these are the success rates, which are quite low, actually. Especially for the oncology field, but they are generally quite low, unfortunately. So there's a lot to be made yet. I will encourage everyone to browse to the clinicaltrials.gov website, because it's quite a useful tool where you can find a lot of information about clinical trials ongoing. And I will now present briefly which are the main highlights about research and ongoing clinical trials. Starting from antisense oligonucleotides, well, this is a panel of all the research going for the CMTA STAR program. CMTA is one of the biggest patient advocacy group all over the world, and they have many processes ranging from discovery to trials. Talking about antisense oligonucleotides, they are already a reality for treating hTTR amyloidosis. Well, in this case, the task is simpler compared to CMT, in the sense that this kind of amyloidosis is due to the production of a mutant protein that actually dissociates and causes the precipitation of deposition of fibrillar, of the misfolded protein on different organs, including the peripheral nerves. So it causes a peripheral neuropathy. What they did is, with these antisense oligonucleotides, which actually mimic real nucleotides, single-stranded DNA, so they form a dimer with the RNA, which is actually perceived by the cell as a fake one. So it's degraded, and at the end of the day, this causes the protein to be degraded, the DNA to be degraded, so the protein is not produced anymore. And it could help, for instance, for the most common form of CMT, which is CMT1A, which is actually related to the duplication of a gene, PMP22, which causes an overproduction of this protein in the neurons. So modulating the production with antisense oligonucleotides could help reduce this protein. We have to keep in mind that we have to bring the protein level back to the physiological level. If we do exceed inhibiting the mRNA, we might fall into another form of CMT, which is called HNPP, which actually is related to the lack of one of the two copies of the gene for PMP22. I want to mention also another trial which is currently undergoing all over the world. I mean, there are different centers in the United States and Europe as well, which is actually run by Farnext. It's a cocktail, and it's a right example of drug repositioning where drugs which are already on the market and are used to treat other conditions are now tested for CMT. To keep it short and simple, preliminary results show that there is a dose effect correlation and with a general improvement of this outcome measure, which is called overall neuropathy scale, which correlates with the assumption of the drug. So we really look forward to hearing the full result of this trial, which will be completed in 1 year or so. This is another trial. It's an observational one, and patients are asked to fill through a smartphone app some questionnaires, some surveys talking about their condition, how they feel, and their health status generally. So this study will help the scientific community understand how living with CMT is. Another trial, which is currently between phase 1 and 2, is run by Inflectis. The drug is called IFP-88, and it's also promising trial. And another trial is run by Applied Therapeutics for a specific form of CMT, which is related to SORD deficiency. And we look forward to this trial too. And I have to mention that gene therapy development is currently ongoing. We are in preclinical stage. We are not as advanced, for instance, like for SMA, but there is a lot going on different forums, and there is a trial ongoing with the main, it's mainly focused on pain treatment by Henrik Smith. An important thing I would like to stress too is the importance of having CMT biomarkers and outcome measures, sensitive outcome measure, because these are of paramount importance for clinical trials. There is a lot going on. For instance, there are many biomarkers which have been identified so far and need to be validated, and also different outcome measures and scales, so-called. For instance, the functional outcome measure, the CMT-HI, health index, neuropathy scale, and so on and so forth. So this is to sum up what's going on in the CMT field. And I want to stress that it's important to get ready for clinical trials. So if you are a pathology, neuromuscular disease, which is anticipated to go into clinical trials, you have to push and work on this aspect to be ready for clinical trials. Thank you for your attention. This is my email address, so if you want to drop me an email, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Are there any questions? If anyone wants to speak up.
I just first wanted to thank European CMT Federation because they invited me to give the greetings to the first event in Paris. It will be really a pleasure to be with you. And I just wanted to say, yeah, I think it's very important to have these European meetings and international meetings in general. I'm also, I've got also the honor to be the chair of ENMC, where the concept is the same. Just put everyone together at the same table and ask them to discuss about what are the issues to tackle. And it's such a simple recipe, but such an impactful way of moving things forward. So I think this meeting in Paris is the first, but will not be the last, and will be a very important event. And we cannot repeat how important it is to put everyone together and have them to identify issues, look for bottlenecks, and more importantly, tackle these problems and find solutions.
Definitely agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, thank you, Filippo, for coming and speaking to us, even though you have been tested positive.
My pleasure.
I also, sorry, Alexandro, I also wanted to mention the fact that I'm actually very proud of being part of ECMTF, of the team. And I just want to thank you, Filippo, for accepting our invitation to have this presentation, and for all your efforts in the ECMTF organization. So it's amazing what we are actually doing at the European level, and not only. And I really hope that EAMDA will be able to support the process of strengthening the Eastern European part when it comes to CMT, because we need to kind of level up a little bit the situation. Yeah. So
I agree with you, Arabella, and I thank you for your words, and I thank Filippo for his courage, for his intervention this morning. I was so sorry not to be there, but I had another meeting at the same time today. So, and we at European Federation, we count on you, Arabella, to extend our presence and your effort of awareness for CMT in the eastern part of Europe, where there is a lack of things to do. So thank you for your effort, and congratulations for the great job you are doing at EAMDA.
thank you so much, Daniel, and I'm very happy that you could join us. And I've seen you even yesterday that you were kind of present. So thank you so much. We will try to put also online all the recordings of the presentation. So yes, nothing lost. Thank you all for all these joint efforts. And just before passing on to Alexandro, I just want to say that we kind of have a little change in the program, because Dimitrios, so he was supposed to present World Duchenne Organization and their activities, but unfortunately he's with his kid at the hospital right now. So a lot of people sick in this time of the year, COVID, flu, and a lot of this season diseases. So so sorry about that. And if it's okay, then maybe we will just pass on to Madelon, but I will let Alexandra introduce her.
Thank you, Arabella. Our next speaker is Madelon Kroneman. She will speak to us about EuroNMD, which is a European reference network for the thematic grouping of rare neuromuscular diseases, a broad group of related disorders that represent a major cause of mortality and lifelong disability in children and adults. The network addresses harmonizing and implementing standards for clinical and diagnostic best practice, improving equity of care provision across member states, decreasing time to diagnosis, increasing cost efficiency through better care pathways, access to specialist training and education, application of e-health services, development and application of care guidelines, facilitating translational and clinical research, harmonizing data and samples for research reuse, and sharing of high-quality data. Madelon, the floor is yours. You are muted. Okay, now.
Thank you. You can hear me now?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I will share my screen.